Thanks for daring to join in this virtual interactive workshop. Before we launch, I will invite those who are open to it to maybe pop open their camera, because I'm hoping we'll all get a chance to exchange. At any point during this workshop, you're more than welcome to chip in, to contribute, to make it a dialogue. I see from the comments that we have an amazingly diverse group of fellows and folks, and I hope that everyone will manage to find a way to use the notions that we'll discuss today and bring it forward into your work. Before further ado, I would like to take a time to first give a huge warm and huge round of gratitude for the whole Ashoka team and all the work they've done lately to make this exchange happen virtually. So we can even clap for them from distance. Also, would like to take a time to thank the people of the land we're standing on. Here I'm talking to you from Quebec, Canada, and I'm on the land of the Wabanaki Confederacy. And I think many of you are also on ancestral land, so I'd like you to take a time to acknowledge and appreciate that. And lastly, I'd also like to add to this land acknowledgement to appreciate the virtual land that allowed us to connect today. And it's something that we often take for granted and that we often critique. But after all, I've been so grateful to spend the last few days, not in a quarantine isolation, but with so many amazing folks from around the world. So without further ado, I'd love us to jump into a little activity that will get us to know each other a little bit. It's going to be very simple. It's going to go right along those questions that we'll explore today around discovering what makes your students come alive, but also discovering what makes you come alive. How this icebreaker is going to work, I'm going to do a little share screen at the same time so you can have the full explanation. Can you see my screen? Can I have a thumbs up? Great. So how this icebreaker is going to work is that you will be placed in a breakout room with one buddy. So there'll be two of you, and you will be given 1 minute each to share on a given prompt, on a given question. The way we're going to do the sharing is going to be a little different than usual. We're really going to practice active listening. So for the first minute, one of the pairs is going to volunteer to go first and is just going to share openly on the question that was given. And the second person is asked to do active listening. That means to simply pay attention, and I'll say the only thing you can truly say is what else, what else, what else, to try to dig deeper on that prompt. After 1 minute, I'm going to write the cue that we're switching pairs, switching buddies in the chat, and we'll flip the process. And this time the other person is going to answer the same question, but for 1 minute. And my goal is that throughout this exchange, we haven't had as many chances as usual to bump into someone at the coffee break and have informal get to know each other conversation. So I'm hoping you can have conversation, maybe connect with someone you'll want to connect later during the break or next week. Are the instructions clear? If you have questions, feel free. So Luciana, do you want to send us off? Your first prompt on which you'll be asked to share is what you love doing in life. So very simple. What do you love doing in life? First person's going to have a minute to share, and then the second person will have a minute to share, and we'll reconvene. Great. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a lovely exchange on that first little prompt. We're just going to repeat this process. I know that was quick, Mathieu, but I want you to get to meet many different people. So we're going to repeat this question, repeat this process, but this time we're going to switch around the question. The question I'm going to ask you is, what causes you care about in this world? Or who would you like to help? So it's going to be the same principle again. You'll have a minute each to share. Again, you'll have a minute each to share, but this time on the prompt, what cause do you care the most about and who would you like to help? So Luciana, if you want to break it out. Seeing some little cheeky smile on people's face, so I assume you must have had some nice conversations. In order to meet one more person, we're going to repeat this process one last time. And this time, the prompt that I'm gonna give you is, what are the strengths that you have, or what are the strengths that you aspire to bring to the world? So last question, what are the strengths you have or the strength you want to aspire to the world? Our amazing Luciana is going to do all her best to break us out into groups. This is going to be the last time. I know it's going fast, but I was hoping we could create a few genuine connections before jumping into the core of the topic. As people trickle back in, I'll invite you just to ponder a little bit. How did that activity feel? This is an activity I ran so many times across the world where I gave different leadership training, but I must say it's the first time I run it at many places in the world at the same time. So I'd be curious to get a few comments from folks around how did it feel to share on those prompts with given strangers for a short amount of time. Don't be shy to unmute yourself and contribute to the dialogue.
I think it was extremely amazing. And even if it's a short time, the way we were able to connect with one another in that short period, it was just phenomenal. So thank you for facilitating that.
Glad to hear. And thanks for the wonderful keynoting you did earlier. Other comments from the group? Whether it was a good or a bad experience?
It's an amazing experience. We are so far away from each other. I'm from Brazil. I'm very far away to the United States. And it's very nice to meet people and talk a little bit and know a little about them. Thank you.
I'll say for me that somehow I ended up getting assigned to people who have connected with me, whether someone who had just sent an email to me about my presentation and another man who had connected with me on LinkedIn. So it was like, oh, hi, like this really cool, even though we're virtual, it was cool to be able to create those connections.
Thanks, Marissa. Same with me. The first people I stumbled upon were people I had just connected with. So other comments?
Something that I've really been reflecting on that I really love about this atmosphere is that when we partner off, it's completely random. So in a typical sort of workshop setting, you might be sitting next to someone you already know or have already connected with, and then naturally have that connection with them in those settings. But I'm really loving the fact that it's totally random, and it really is wonderful meeting so many people from so many diverse backgrounds.
Wow, thanks, Laura.
And I'll just add that the prompts themselves are very motivational, very exciting, very positive prompts. And when we're passionate about something, it's easier to speak about it and jump right in without having to sort of tease out what you're going to say. So I appreciated the prompts themselves.
Great. And sometimes I love to put a few prompts that are maybe fire starters or that will spark people inside, but sometimes I'll go for some challenging ones too, where often I start this activity with, who are you? And people at first go, and then I wrap it up where the last round is again, who are you, with the same partner you started with. And usually people at that point have a whole new discourse. So it's fun to play with this little activity. And for those who might want to reuse it in their work in some workshop as a great icebreaker, I've done this in so many formats. Sometimes we do it a walk and talk, where one person shares for a minute, the other person shares for a minute, and then we stop the whole group to give the new prompt, new partner, and so on. So there's just so many ways to play with this activity. But what I've learned through time is that having that chance to connect one-on-one with a few people in the group just creates a space where we're more open to sharing together afterwards. So I'd be curious, are there last comments that people would like to add?
One thing that I will share is that this is the conversation I want to have with everybody I meet. And so I like that it just, you get rid of all the small talk and get right down into the thing that I am most curious about when I meet somebody in the grocery store. This is the conversation I want to have with people. So thank you.
Well, another great prompt, which we'll touch upon later, Jennifer, is just asking people, yeah, what makes you come alive? Why are you doing what you do? And if ever you're curious to push further, I just watched a TED Talk on how to have great conversations that talks about all those notions of the prompts you'll bring. So I'd be happy to reconnect with you later if you want.
Yeah.
I'll take a last comment before I move on.
Yeah, I love the dynamic and to know people like in few minutes, like, hey, how are you? Where are you from? I think like Jennifer was saying, we're not together like in person. So this is a type of conversations that we have when we are getting cafe or something in the event, but it was great to have this moment. Thank you, Clement.
Thank you. And I've also ran this workshop with people who knew each other and said, wow, we knew each other, but never asked yourself some of those big questions. But Lourdes, I must ask, what's that beautiful background behind you?
Well, this is like the background that I have in my office. So we have a Volkswagen Beetle there. I miss it too much. So I have it as my background just to don't miss that much the office. Yeah.
Love it. Just to prove that everyone can have something different that makes them come alive.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So I'll move forward, and to introduce the concept, I'll also introduce a little bit of my story. One of my story that starts when I started pondering, how can I have the most impact in my community? The truth is, I was in my before the last year of university at College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, Maine, and I was approaching that final capstone project. And in order to decide what I wanted to do, I started pondering that question over and over again. How can I have the most impact in my community? I realized that more than anything that I could do myself, if I could enable 10, 100, 1,000 other people to develop the change they want to see in the world or to develop social impact projects, it would have a much greater lever effect than any projects I could carry on alone. So little that I knew, this quickly became my spark and my passion for educational innovation and for trying to see how I could empower as many change makers as possible. So I left on a research journey literally around the world, where I visited educational institutions from Stanford Design School to the University of Innovation in Tokyo. And I carried over 100 interviews, visited 12 institutions, looking at one, how do you spark one's will to contribute to a better world? And two, how do you empower them with the tools, the skills, and the mindset they need to develop their projects to create that change they want to see? If you're curious about my research, changemaker-educator.com, there's a lot more there. And that's also what led me to develop Changemaker Residency, the pilot project of a new experiential approach to higher education. But through all of my work and of all my research, the one concept that was a turning point and that really changed the way I approach my everyday life, my conversation, as much as the way I approached the different educational experience I was creating, was a concept I discovered in Japan that's called ikigai. It's a Japanese philosophy, ikigai. Is there anyone who reads or speaks Japanese here? I met a few in other sessions, so I could have connected with them. But instead of having them teach you, I guess I'll have to do the crash course on ikigai. But Ikki, the two characters you see here on the screen, the first character kind of has that connotation of giving birth, but together they mean life. And gai has a connotation of worth, to be worth. And if you look at the first symbol there, it relates to shells. Because back in the old days, centuries and centuries, millenniums ago, I believe, in Japan, shells were what were used as currency. And so shells had a value. But together, ikigai, I say it best translates to a reason for being alive. And this is really and behind the philosophy is actually quite a simple concept. It's the notion of seeing how can you combine your interests, so what you love doing in life, your strength, being what you have to contribute to the world, and the causes you care the most about, into meaningful, what I call world-changing projects, no matter the scale. And I had the chance to interact with many, many people and heard so many stories while I spent 2 summers working on different programs in Japan. And I heard about ikigai in so many different ways. But one story that came back often was how ikigai is linked to purpose, and purpose is the key to happiness. Other people in Japan would say that ikigai is what gets you up every morning and keeps you going. And one of the stories I'll never forget was someone telling me about Okinawa, which is an island in the south of Japan, where they have the highest concentration of centenarians, meaning the highest concentration of people who lived over 100 years old. And on that island, so many people have done research to try to identify, why are those people long lived, or why are those people so old? And what research showed over and over again is that it linked with the different aspects of the ikigai. And those people who were centenarians were often engaged in different activities that would give back to their community. From some who were still active on the farm and who would be producing vegetables to feed their community, to others who might have been potters and who would educate the youth in the village to do pottery too. And so it was just really fascinating to see. Although the truth is, I had many stories and many people who saw the ikigai through different lens and used it in different ways. And I would say it's more me with the Changemaker residency team who turned the ikigai notion into what we call the creative process to help people ideate around world-changing projects. And those have touched so many people. Here on the screen, you'll see on the left with the monk and with the big leaf in his hand is one of my friend Yoichiro. He is the very first person I gave an ikigai workshop for, and I actually gave it at his house for him one-on-one. It was the first time I tried it out. And little did I know, my little 1.5 hour ikigai session with him brought him on going all around Asia, trying to see what are the causes he cared the most about, and using his interest of journalism to put forth untold stories from different regions in Asia. On the other end of the screen, you'll see a picture of Tani Ashida, who is the director at ISAC, the International School of Asia in Karuizawa. And the very first time I did a workshop in Japan on the ikigai philosophy, I was matched up with her. And she was telling me how she loved her work and she felt that she was contributing to a cause by educating youth on a daily basis. Yet at the same time, she felt that she had put aside so many of her interest for arts, her interest for nature. And so in that workshop, we came up with the idea that she could potentially use arts and nature by taking students from her school on a van into random spots in nature and giving them basic drawing class. And about 3 months after that workshop, where we had come to get up with that idea, Tani Ashida wrote back to me and told me, hey, I hosted the first cohort of what she called the mystery drawing van, because she goes to a mysterious place and draw. So this concept of ikigai can really be used at all age, all phase. It can even be used to generate ideas within an enterprise, within an organization, of how do you want to go forward. But before we go further and talk, actually, I'll open a little space for questions before we jump into the first activity that will get you to think about your own ikigai and what makes you come alive. So any questions? It's the miracles of technology. It always seems like we're clearer. People have less questions. So then I'm going to jump right in and give you a first little reflection. It might push you a tiny bit outside of your comfort zone, or should I say of your comfort chair, as you're going to have to get up and try to find a piece of paper and a pen in your house or in your office or wherever you are. And if that is really impossible, because I know some people are pretty high tech and don't want to waste paper, you can also pull up a Word document on your screen. And basically what you'll be invited to do from there is to mind map your own ikigai. And I'll give you a little example of what this could look like. But since we didn't have printouts, we're going to let you all do it in the style that you want. But the idea is very easy. You have 7 minutes to just try to generate as many things as possible that might fall into the realm of your interest. You'll have 7 minutes to do the same, try to brainstorm as many strengths, or it can be strengths that you inspire to develop. And same for the causes. You'll be invited to put as many causes up as you can. If you want, you can draw the little ikigai symbol on your paper. If not, just be creative. You can do a list, whatever works best for you. So we'll give 7-minute top chrono for this first little introspection. So I'll invite you to slowly come back with the group and maybe wrap up your last thoughts. Usually at this point in the workshop, when I run a life workshop, we do what we call an ikigai gallery walk. Very simple. Everyone leaves their ikigai on the ground, or sometimes we put them up on the wall, and we give a 10-15 minute for people to just walk around and look at others' ikigai. And often by seeing what others have put, people say, oh yeah, it's true. I forgot that I used to love canoeing. I'll add it onto mine. Sometimes when we work this ikigai workshop with people who know each other, we'll even have anyone can add to anyone's ikigai. And sometimes people will say, well, I see a great strength in Erica's smile and endless optimism, so I could add optimism to someone else's ikigai. So now, just for the sake of the symbolic, I will invite those who dare to open their camera and just share quickly what their ikigai looks like. I know we won't see too much, but at least we'll give it a try for those who are up for sharing. Nice, Molly. I love how it can take any form. Jennifer, great circles. Nice. Nice. And we often put a lot of emphasis with the folks that we're working with on daring to share, daring to open up, because the more they share, the more they get retroaction and the more they grow. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we can help people dig even further. Because the truth is, sometimes I've done this activity with people where they could barely generate any ideas of things they loved, they cared about. I've even worked with the Ikigai workshop with some people who were off the street. So sometimes you have to have help to dig deeper. And one of the concepts or activities we do at Changemaker Residency, which is the pilot project of a new experiential approach to higher education that I run with my team. As for interest, what we'll do is we'll challenge our participants to design their dream day, or what would their dream week look like. And sometimes we even give them a day or two that they can actually live it, where basically it's kind of an off day, except that they're supposed to do what they love doing. And some of the participants have reconnected with, one of them said, wow, I hadn't done martial arts for years, but by designing my dream day, I realized that I really need to take some classes again, and that's what I want to do. So that's one way to dig interest. There's so many others. One place where people often get stuck and have more struggle is around finding what are those causes that attract you. And if you want, I'd be happy to have a chat around that. And there's a ton of info on my website, Changemaker Educator, around that. But one of the tricks that was given to me by Julie Lang from Tulane University was to actually print out these list of causes for participants and ask them each to circle around the ones that they felt compelled to, or the ones that they want to explore some more. Because sometimes people can't even think about them, but when they see them, they say, oh yeah, it's true. I would like to take action against waste or whatsoever. As for strength, usually in workshops, we do this with my team. One of our favorite workshops is around the Johari window. If ever you want to look into it, Johari is the name of two psychologists who built this window that allows you to learn what do others know about you that you don't know about yourself. And that even allows you to explore the zone of what don't you know about yourself that others don't know about yourself. And we've developed different workshops using the concept of the Johari window to help people deepen their understanding of their own strength. And so those are just a few tricks that you might be able to import or not to your work. Any questions before I move forward?
Hello. I'd like to ask a question, or maybe it's a comment. I was working with a woman who was working with a prisoner befriending scheme, and I asked her the same kind of question. What is it that keeps you there? And she said, I'm concerned about what comes through my door. And she had come to a place where she was flexible and was able to commit to the energy that was needed to move that forward, and not to be personal in her own causes, which I thought was really intriguing. And I've seen that in myself since I work with groups who come with problems that they want to research and find a solution. And so doing this was really hard. You know, I mean, I could have either have taken all the ones I have looked at, but you know, this was really wonderful in terms of trying to sort that idea out. Like you and your work has taken over your ability to look at causes.
Very interesting point. Any other comments or people want to bounce off Nancy's thought? So time is flying by, and I realized from the comments that lots of people appreciate sharing with someone else. So what I'll offer is usually what we do in this workshop is we'll invite you to pick out of your interest, your strength, and your causes 2 or 3 words that you've placed that feel most relevant to you right now. So from all the interests you've listed on your ikigai, if you'd have to choose 2 and put a big star next to them, which one would they be? Doing same with your strength, if you'd have to pick 2 strengths that feel relevant to you right now and 2 causes that feel relevant to you right now. And then I'll give the instructions and I'll give you a little bit of time to work on it. What we do afterwards, usually, we'll have those written on Post-its and we'll invite people to randomly pick 1 strength, 1 interest, and 1 cause. And to try in pairs or in triads to generate as many ideas as possible of ways of combining those strengths, those interests, and those causes. And one thing I didn't mention before, but every time we work with the Ikigai model with our team at Changemaker Residency, we say the disclaimer that Ikigai is not about finding one project that is going to fall at the center, is that going to fulfill you for the rest of your life. And it's not about seeking that Ikigai. It's about balancing different projects. And sometimes you might feel at work that you're contributing to a cause and that you just need to spend more time doing your interests at night and on the weekend. And sometimes it might be vice versa. So the way we use the Ikigai in our brainstorming session is a lot around the notion, how can you generate as many ideas as possible and think outside the box of things that you might have not thought of otherwise on how to combine those interests, cause, and strength. So for instance, if I do a little example basically with the group, we get them to pick 3 Post-its, little pods, and generate as many ideas as possible. When I worked with the youth off streets with this Ikigai workshop, we did this contest where they were split in little triads, and it was who can generate the most idea of world-changing projects of small scale by combining those strengths of one of the individuals in their group. And it was fascinating to see that some came up with 21, 26 ideas of things they could do. And it was really an eye-opener. One of them came to me after the workshop and told me, I never thought that I could have an impact through drawing comics. And so she was someone who had been drawing animes and comic for so long. And so if I do a little example, for those who don't know, I'm also a circus artist. That's where I built most of my change-making skills. So if I take one of my interests for circus, my strength for leadership, and social justice being a cause that I care a lot about much, the notion around the Ikigai right now, or using an Ikigai brainstorming or ideation session, would be how can I generate as many creative ideas of how to combine those 3 things. So I could launch circus workshop that aimed to teach leadership. I could run some, obviously when you're on the spot, you can't think about anything, but that's when you use the collective power. And so I'm gonna invite Luciana to prepare some other breakout rooms so that everyone are in pairs again. And you'll have 7 minutes together. And I'll invite you to have a conversation, but in a mindset of ideation. And how can you generate ideas out of one's highlighted strength, interest, and cause? And I realize I'm going quite fast and we can't, with groups, I'd often do an ideation process, but I have full faith in all of you. And so I'm just gonna jump you right into the breakout room unless someone has a pressing question. Luciana, do you want to give the rooms for maybe, let's say 6 minutes? so curious. Know that time was limited, but I hope you had the chance to meet another wonderful folks. I sure did. So I'd be curious to close off by asking, how was that for people, but also maybe looking at from the essence of what we've covered today, because we've covered quite a bit of concept within 50 minutes. What have been things that you see could be carried forth to your work? And Zoe, can I put you on the spot to start the conversation?
Yes, you can. Okay, so what was your question again?
So basically, how could you transfer some of the notions that we've covered today into your work?
Yes. Oh, okay. So I have a perfect example. So next week, some of my colleagues are on this session right now. So I work at the University of Rochester in a place called iZone. So that's our innovation hub that's housed within the University of Rochester libraries. So we have lots of students coming in and out of our space every day. We interact and we create that community. Right now, we are charged with hosting an online program for up to 50 prospective students who are going to be hopefully attending U of R in the fall. So we're charged with creating that space and that community for those students to, one, just get to know each other, interact with each other. And normally we would run a really fast-paced, exciting, hands-on workshop, but instead we might be doing this. So thank you for this wonderful session, because these prompts are really helpful. And as we were sort of thinking about what the flow would be, we ourselves were like, okay, how can we get them to get to know not only each other, but also themselves, and how they can carry some of those values when attending the university, whether that be virtual or in person. We want them to take their superpowers and apply them to the things that they care about.
Thank you so much, Zoe, and I'd be happy to share more material, or if you want to get in touch, don't hesitate following that. And one of the things that's interesting in these times more than ever, people are looking for connections. They're looking for those one-on-one conversation. So how can we create those spaces? Other comments from the group?
Hi, I'm Erica. I'll definitely be using this this fall with my first-year students. Every fall I teach at-risk first-year students, and we talk a lot about vocation and, you know, what is your purpose, and trying to get them to think beyond the major. You know, I'm going to major in accounting, and they get set on these little things, right? No, but what do you want to do in your life? And so this set of questions and this sort of sequence of exercises, it seems really perfect for what I want to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. And I work at an innovation hub at Université de Sherbrooke, and we have developed a system where pretty much every autumn and winter we'll start the session with one ikigai workshop. And it is usually the workshop that gets the most people to show up, because we use question as come discover what will make you come alive, and what finding your purpose. And it attracts a lot of people that we can then dispatch in the other programs and courses that we run.
Do you have a video or something that I mean, this is very intriguing, and I'd love to learn more, but what would you suggest?
I would, first I'd suggest maybe getting those who are interested in carrying out a session and obviously adapting it to your own needs. Feel free to write to me. My email is on the slide. And if you write to me, I could give you our lesson plan, and you'll see how we adapt it in so many different ways. Sometimes, as I talked earlier, we do a walk and talk in which people share. So that might be the next step. And I'd be happy to have a conversation with you, Nancy, to see how we can adapt it to your concept, your context.
Great. Thank you.
Is there a last comment from the group?
Yeah, I start my master's online class in public health. The course is public health and social justice, and it starts in 20 days. And this is definitely how I'm going to start my class.
Oh, cool. So glad to hear.
Thank you.
I've been surprised by how many of you are talking about running it in corporate setting or in classroom setting or in program setting. But to me, Ikigai has changed the way every year at New Year's, I take a time to reflect upon my Ikigai and how I want to live my upcoming year. When I have friends that come to me and aren't doing well, often I end up asking them indirectly those ikigai questions as they start seeing a brighter future. And so for me, the essence of the ikigai goes beyond a workshop, beyond the activities we've done today. And I invite you all to adapt it, to bring it, to give it the color that you want wherever you are. Because after all, to finish on a quote from Howard Truman, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who've come alive. And I feel that I sense from those who spoke and from the smile on others and from knowing some of you that joined that are very special to me, Mohit and Mathieu and all of you together, and that you're all those kind of people that have that power and that energy to inspire others. So I invite you to keep being you, keep doing what you love, keep being alive, because just that is going to create a ripple effect. So on that, thank you so much for joining today. And I'm wishing you a wonderful exchange, and don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I would always love to connect.
Thanks, Clement.
And actually, if I can allow to go over one minute, I'd be curious to get one word from everyone in the chat that you're leaving with today. One word of what you're leaving with.
Energize.
Profound.
Well, thanks again, everyone, and have a lovely rest of the exchange.